financial report for the month of December. You will see in the general fund, we had revenues for the month of $3,303,572, with expenditures of $4,613,472. So we have an ending fund balance at the end of December in the general fund of $11,732,173 and some change. And you can see here up on the screen, you can see the cash flow for the month of December in comparison to the previous 3 school years, and as well as what's in the management fund for the previous 3 school years as well as this current school year. And the statewide 1-cent sales tax fund with revenues of $391,753 with expenses of $255,093. So you can see we have an ending fund balance of $8,686,411, and you'll notice in the box the amount of money that's restricted and unrestricted within that fund. And the physical plant and equipment levy revenue of $79,088 for the month, $51,268 worth of expenditures, and an ending fund balance of $2,599,595. And so you can see where that is at in comparison. We're really similar to where we were 1 year ago as far as fund balance is concerned. Debt service, you can see the total revenues of interest of $455 in interest plus the transfer in of the $252,673. We made our December bond payment at $502,720. So you can see our ending fund balance is $1,016,215 approximately. Student activity revenue of $81,277, expenditures of $94,463 for an ending fund balance of $629,849. Food service, you can see the revenues were up $221,855. Expenses were slightly down in comparison to the years for December at $184,099. I have a fund balance of $41,787. If that happens one more month, I can officially say that food service has started a trend of having a larger fund balance than it did the previous month a year ago. But we'll wait till next month first before we start dancing in the street. And then there's the coffee shop fund, and you can see that they just had a little over $800 in revenue and about $159 in expenditures. So that's it for December. We're halfway through the school year. I want to thank the business office team for all the work amongst everything else putting this together. We're in the middle of doing W-2s now in December, and that all-important Affordable Care Act documentation that is extremely burdensome, and if it weren't for the great team that I have, we wouldn't be able to get a lot of things accomplished, so hats off to them.
I think we will issue close to 1,200 W-2s as a school district.
Yeah.
So that's
And,
pretty amazing what they do over the course of the year.
And with the ACA Act, we literally have to touch every employee for every month that they've worked here to determine whether they were on insurance or qualified for insurance or all that's very time consuming. I think Danelle estimated it took somewhere around 15 minutes per employee.
Wow.
So,
Good work.
all right, thank you, and I'll pass the word on to them. Thank you.
Any questions? Hearing none, the financial reports will be placed on file for audit. Communications, we have Mr. Flancher.
Currently in Student Senate right now, we're gearing up for our dance marathon, which I know last time I mentioned would be on February 19th. That's a Friday night. It also falls on state wrestling time the year, but we always run into that problem. But we're still very excited about that, busy raising money, finding sponsors for our raffle that we have at the night of the dance marathon. That's our main project right now, and then after that will come Tiger Trot and other teacher appreciation breakfasts. For sophomore leadership, they're planning their Coaches versus Cancer fundraiser. It's on February 12th when our CF men's basketball team plays West at home, and they will have an auction as well as a bake sale and other fundraising events at the night of the game to raise money, and that will all go toward the UNI Relay for Life. And then the halftime speaker will be Mr. Strike, the math teacher at the high school, he is back at school now from being on medical leave, for his cancer treatment. So he will be our halftime speaker at the fundraiser. This past Friday in West Des Moines, the Know Your Constitution luncheon was held. It was a program put on by the Iowa State Bar Association, and we had 7 students from Cedar Falls School District represent us. It was divided up by house district. So we had 7 finalists from CF, and then there were 100 students total from across the state. And this was pretty exciting because they had drew 5 names randomly for trips to Washington, D.C., and we had a freshman from Pete get drawn. So he will be going to Washington, D.C. in February representing Cedar Falls schools. So that will be very exciting to hear back from him and his experience there. In music, the Northeast Iowa Band Association's Honors Jazz Band was held this past Saturday at Cedar Rapids Kennedy. We had 6 students participate there. And then currently the Dorian Vocal Music Concert at Luther, we also have 6 students participating there representing Cedar Falls. Recapping some sports from recent weeks, we have men's and women's bowling. Last week they have a good streak. They won the meet at Iowa City West last Friday. Women's basketball beat Linn-Mar's last Friday, but unfortunately our men's basketball team fell to Linn-Mar 69-61, but it was a good game. On Saturday, varsity wrestling competed at the Crestwood Invitational. We had 2 champions there. And then men's swimming placed 5th at their Johnston Invitational as well on Saturday. And then finally, the most important part of this week is finals week. So we are gearing up with our finals schedule. And going off, I've spread the word around. We talked in the Student Senate about how we're feeling about finals, this new situation. Even though it's out of our hands, it's in the state's control. But overall, the consensus I found is what I expected. Is we would prefer it before holiday break. But looking at the inevitable, we have to have it this way. The benefits we did find, the things we did like, were that we had a 4-day week. We liked that it was scheduled before Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so we still did have that 4-day break and having a professional development day on Friday. And students also liked that there was about a 2-week period after returning from school to like a cushion that we could prepare for finals, so we didn't have to jump right back in from holiday break and be caught off guard. So nevertheless, we would prefer it before holiday break, but there were benefits and there were some pluses to the current situation that we did like.
Thanks for that assessment.
If that
There
makes
are
a
pros and
difference.
cons. And tell us about the Know Your Constitution. Were you one of the participants in that?
I was, yes. I was one of the finalists for that this year. So.
And 100 students from all over the state? Then?
Yes, I think they mentioned there were over 900 that participated from across the state from different house districts. And then there were 100 finalists and 7 were from Cedar Falls. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So we can come to you with any constitutional questions we have.
I guess you could.
We'll just fact check all the political candidates
All right.
through you. So.
I'd enjoy doing
All
it.
right.
Probably, so.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Next, we have before us a Woodward Granger thing from the SBRC. Would you present that to us, Doug?
Yeah, I'll do that one for you real quick. If the board will recall, back in December, you approved a request to the School Budget Review Committee for for administrative costs associated with special education administrative costs, associated with the River Hills Consortium. Well, we also have one student that's at the Woodward Granger Academy, and that's in the Des Moines metro area, and that is now a consortium as well. And so what we're asking for tonight is for you to approve administrative cost requests associated with that one student at that program. As you can see, it's a whole, I can't even read it. It's not very large.
1522.
Okay, 1522. And it would be for the special education costs associated with that program. So I think there's a motion out there, and what that would do is it allows us to charge that amount of money towards our total special education expenditures for the 2016-17 school year. Remember, we do have to do this 1 year in advance. So.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Is that G?
Yes.
I move that the Board of Directors approve the school budget review committee application for special education administrative cost requests associated with Woodward Granger School for 2016-2017 school year.
Here a second.
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Nefsker, we want to continue with the next one.
Okay, with school buses. It's that time of year again. Annually about this time, we come to the board and we talk to you about the purchase of school buses for this next school year. For those board members that are new to the board, unfortunately, you just can't go to the school bus store and buy a new school bus. You typically have to order those somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6 to 7 months in advance. And we've sent out invitations to the 3 dealers within the state of Iowa that we can send invitations to for bids. We received 2 back, and it would be our recommendation to accept the low quote for the school bus sales in Waterloo for the purchase of 2 84-passenger school buses at a cost of $193,104. In addition to that, we are also asking the board to purchase 1 conventional school bus, as we would like to purchase 3 this year, and we do have that budgeted within our physical plant and equipment levy to do that. Again, we sent out those specifications to those 3 dealers. Received those quotes back, and we received a very nice trade-in value for our 1 bus, and because of that, we would recommend to accept the low quote from Thomas Bus Sales in Des Moines for the conventional bus at $61,072.38. Again, all of this would come out of the 2016-17 school year physical plant and equipment levy, and it does keep us rotating in line with the plan that we have for vehicle replacement at the with the buses. We're moving or transitioning towards a 5 every 2 year rotation. Our problem is mileage, because we do have one of the buses we're going to trade this year is at $200,000. Another one that we're keeping for that won't go until next year will be at about $200,000, but we had to put a new engine in about 3 years ago. So we kind of felt we wanted to try and extend that value a little bit. But our biggest issue is age more than anything else. We're going to have some buses that will be in the fleet close to 20 years. At the rate we're going, we're going to have some buses in that 21, 22 year range. And when they get that old, it becomes a body rust parts issue more than it becomes a mileage issue. Because our team does a great job of keeping everything running. We're sort of known throughout the state as when Cedar Falls wants to trade a bus, they really take a hard look at our stuff because there's some value in them. And you can see that by the quotes, that trade-in values that we were given on the quotes this year. So our recommendation would be to the board to purchase 3 buses, the 1 from Thomas at the $61,072 and the other 2 from School Bus Sales at a total amount of, if I can get the right file popped up here, $193,104.
Thank you.
How many students does the third bus hold? That last one.
That would the transits are 84 passenger maximum capacity. The conventional 65 passenger
65. Okay.
maximum capacity.
Okay. And then do we do the outfitting with the cameras and so on, or is that
Right.
Okay.
There'll be a separate purchase order issued to our vendor, who will take the cameras out of the 3 buses that we're trading in them and transfer them into the existing buses.
Okay.
So, and we typically have them come on an annual basis and go through our vehicles, check all the cameras and the radios, and that's all taken care of during summer.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Nefker. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. We purchased these 2 buses these 2 bus bids. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And next, it was a facility committee bond petition. And Dr. Petit, would you?
We have one of our members of our facility committee here this evening to present to the board the petition acceptance and present to the board that the committee has generated over 760 signatures for the board. So, Mr. Moody.
First, on behalf of the facility committee, the numerous community members that we've talked to in the past few weeks, we'd like to thank this board for continuing to keep the vision of excellence in the forefront in education in Cedar Falls. We know that it's a pillar of the community, has a long-standing tradition of excellence, and keeping that in the forefront is very important to a lot of people. So I'd like to thank them, or thank you guys for that on behalf of those groups. Next, I would like to thank the people that in the community and on this board that took the time and effort to go out and reach out to community members and garner the signatures that we needed. You know, it's from the numbers that we got in a fairly short time period, it's pretty obvious that there's a pretty substantial amount of support out there for us to move forward. So on behalf of those groups, I would like to thank you again and present the board with the petition packet that was received.
Thank you, Mr. Moody.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Do I hear a motion to that?
Are we ready for the next one?
Yep, that's just an acceptance. So, and then
Okay. I move that the Cedar Falls Community School District Board of Directors adopt the resolution ordering a special election on the issuance of $32 million of general obligation school bonds as presented.
Okay, and a second?
I second.
Any questions?
And we'll need a roll call on
Okay.
this. Okay. Mrs. Leeper,
Yes.
Mrs. Hans,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Hassman,
Yes.
Mrs. Hines,
Yes.
and Dr. Kenyon.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Motion carried. Thank you. We have this one then. That took care of that. Okay. Okay. Superintendent report.
several different items. Number one, January 13th, coming up in 2 days, we have our administrative council / board retreat at 9:30 a.m. We have an agenda that went out today on that, and certainly know that will be a great morning to listen to some of our buildings and updates on our buildings, and we'll have some tabletop discussions as well amongst the board and our administrators. So looking forward to that morning and certainly that retreat. January 25th, at the next board meeting, we have our informational report, which will be art. We also know that on February 16th, 2016, we have our special board election that will take place on that date. Future board meetings, I had a couple different items. Number one, we need to look at our calendars to see if we can come up with a date for a work session regarding continuing discussions on the ISAB convention and meeting. And hopefully we can come up with a meeting date if people brought their calendars, so we can kind of start looking at some dates. A couple dates that I thought maybe we could look at was a potential for Tuesday night next week on the 19th, or maybe the 20th as potential dates.
I'm going to be gone all week.
Gone all that week, okay? We could look at maybe the 27th of January, would be a day.
That's open for me.
I can't do that. I will be here.
What's the next choice?
Well, we could try something even before maybe the next board meeting, say like at 6 o'clock,
That'd be the 25th.
25th at 6?
We have a PEP committee, but I don't think much is going on really.
I'm
Pep
sure.
grant committee.
Yeah, I'm sure
We could
we'd
miss
be
that.
okay if we miss that.
Yeah, I think Troy would be okay if we missed it.
Okay, so maybe look at the 25th at 6? Would that be okay?
That works for me.
Okay, good. I'll communicate that with Dr. Shaw as well. So,
Okay.
so we'll plan on
6
1:25 at 6 p.m. A couple advocacy sessions that are upcoming for anybody that's interested. January 26th, coming up in a couple weeks. ISEA has invited us to attend one of their advocacy training sessions in Des Moines that are going to meet with legislators. February 6th is the Iowa Association of School Boards, and they invite all school board members to come down for that day for advocacy at the Capitol. And then February 24th is the UEN, Urban Education Network's Advocacy Day. Again, traveling to Des Moines to work with legislators and advocate for the funding and support of public education across the state. So again, if anybody's interested in attending any of those 3 dates, please let me know or Carrie know, and we'll certainly communicate that. I think the most pressing one is January 26th with ISEA. That's always an exciting day. Typically, they will have anywhere from 200 to 400 teachers from across the state down there, and it's an exciting day to take part in and certainly be involved with.
Yeah, I think I'll probably go to that one, Andy.
What time does that start?
Typically, and again, I don't have the finalized time frames, but typically we leave around 7 in the morning, and we're back certainly by about 2:30 or 3.
Why don't you plan to me unless you hear otherwise?
That sounds good.
Put me down too.
Okay. Perfect. And the other ones, I know there were agendas.
What was the first February one you said?
February 8th is the Iowa Association of School Boards.
Okay.
And then
We need
February,
back in time for the board meeting then.
we would, yep,
Okay.
we would. And then February 24th is the UEN, and we have not had any, just a confirmation email that said save the date. But I've not seen an agenda for that, and that's a new framework this year,
That's all right.
so not sure how that's going to work.
Okay.
That's all I had. Oh, and well, the other items with future board meetings, one of the things that I think it would behoove us to have a discussion about, we've not had it at the table yet, to talk about location of meetings and where do we want to hold meetings. So I think that should be brought back for a board meeting at some time. Could be a work session discussion to have that conversation. What does our board meetings in the future look like? What is that going to be held, and just to make sure that we all have that discussion as a full board, since that's not really been held recently in the past.
One of the things I think would be helpful in that is maybe just kind of listing some of the options and then the costs. I know that, the YouTube video, people complain about the sound and quality, although Janelle's done a good job of getting a better camera on there. But maybe just to have, if those haven't been flushed out and some advantages and disadvantages, and just to help generate the discussion.
Yep, we can certainly do that. And we brought something to the board, must have been about 2 years ago, with some different cost estimates, maybe a year and a half ago, I'm trying to recall. But I think there's been some upgrades and some updates since that time frame. And if decisions to stay here, maybe we can do some things with seating, because these tables are, we all know, very clunky and difficult to move around. And eventually, just with the space allocations we have as a district, we're going to have to do some things differently with these tables, just because we have meetings in here periodically throughout the week, and it is virtually impossible to set this up in a more user-friendly approach. So it's something we will be looking at.
Okay.
Do we know for sure, can we kind of specify when we're going to talk about that? Will it be at our work session on the 25th, or is it better to talk about it at a board meeting, or what?
I think that's really the direction of the board and what you would prefer to do. We could actually probably, spend, we want to do due diligence, but if we really wanted to talk about it on the 25th, we might want to start just a little bit earlier, just to make sure we have enough time built in to have not only a discussion about what we learned and continue those discussions about ISAB, but then also to spend some time on this.
Yeah, I guess my feeling would be, probably we can't discuss ISA in 1 hour. We probably can't do both of those. I mean, I'm willing to start, if you all want to start like at 5, I would be more than willing to.
Could we do that at a board meeting in February? And have it in a work session before?
I'm just going to pull up the calendar.
The 11th.
For the February 8th meeting, come an hour earlier and do it.
Yeah,
We could do that.
and just maybe plan to meet at those 2 dates for work sessions and
Okay.
have discussion.
Yeah.
The 8th as well then, February
Yep.
8th, right?
Correct.
So it would be the 25th at 6 p.m. and the February 8th at 6 p.m. for work sessions.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns from the board members?
I mean, I have a question for Andy, and I thought Larry's address was great. With how the governor is proposing to do this, I think it's great that it's going to be extended, but so I just want to make sure I understand it correctly, I guess. is it only the first 10 million of whatever is raised will come to schools? I mean, they talked about the
Yes.
first 10 million of extra funds, but that's the first 10 million that is raised in the penny tax.
We'll go to the schools.
Will go to schools, and then anything else.
Goes to
So
local
as
government.
some context, what is that? I mean, is there another 20 million past that? Or, I mean, are we thinking that the schools are really going to get the short end of this? Or if you could give a little,
Long term, yes. We know short term, we won't generate as much money, but long term, it's going to be a significant decrease in funding over the course of the cycle through 2049. So it's not beneficial to schools, certainly.
have you gotten any input from our local legislators as to whether they are supporting this, whether they are?
One is not that I've talked with. The other two I've not confirmed with yet. I've got conversations or emails into them, but I don't know for certain support or not support. But certainly understand the concerns that we have as a district, and certainly the concerns I think most districts across the state have with this.
So what should we be doing as board members?
Advocate. In email, call, let them know the concern that robbing Peter to pay Paul. I think that was a good comment. The fact that this can hurt districts long term when we start looking at facilities. We want to make sure that that money is invested for the right reasons in the intent of that penny, which is for school infrastructure. It was passed in all 99 counties for that purpose, and this is what it should be used for.
So when it says that it needs legislative action to enact it, the legislature just has to accept that recommendation? Is that what has to happen this session, or?
Both have to approve. Both houses have to approve that
And are
as
you
a bill.
getting any sense yet? I mean, or is it so early?
It's so early. Right now, there's not a lot of discussion on it. I don't think there's a lot of traction, but we just have to wait and see right now. It's a recommendation. That's all it is. It has to go through the channels, and it has to go through the politics, and we'll wait and see where it winds up, but I think we can influence where it winds up by advocating the right way for school districts, and that's important for us to do.
I mean, real quick, the presentation concerned me just because we have a former Democratic governor. I realize he's the ag secretary, but who's standing there supporting it. And then, they're saying that, there were people from education, and there's, so obviously he's put his team together, at least craftily, to present this. So I'm just concerned that
It's politics.
we can get in and make a difference.
And I think we can. I think there's a lot of concern out there about this as different constituent groups across the state. I know that several chambers and alliances were asked to sign up for it, and they did not because of the concern and the impact it would have on school districts across the state. I believe the first 12 years from 2017 through 2029, it's a loss of revenue of about $400 million anticipated.
So it is immediate. It's not just with the extension. It would be immediately.
It starts immediately. That $10 million cap starts as soon as the bill is passed, which would be 2017 through 2049. So it does not give the same funding level through 2029. It actually starts decreasing the amount of anticipated revenue districts would receive starting in 2017, fiscal year 2017.
Can it become a legal issue? Because I don't understand how voters can vote for this, and then the funds the purposes change.
And Doug can answer that better than I could, but there are some districts that have fully used all their capacity for the 1 cent sales tax with an anticipated revenue growth. And again, there's some streamlines and some baselines that you can't go above. What happens is if you have used all that capacity, you have less revenue than you anticipate, you actually, by statutory law, have to increase another tax levy, which would be your PEPL. And your PEPL can go above the $1.67 to pay those.
Or you're tapping into that reserve that we talk about. Remember, we talk about that we have a reserve.
Right.
And then the other thing is, in the case of what we're talking about, we could only max out to we have to have like a 125 coverage. So you have roughly 20 or 25% of your total revenue you don't bond against. So you're using those dollars to cover this shortfall. It's a way to protect the bondholder. The other thing Dr. Pattis hasn't mentioned is we don't know the full impact yet on the executive action that's going to open up some of the sales tax exempt options for manufacturing. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but we don't know what that impact's going to be. We've heard numbers sort of all over the place, and so we might have two different things coming down the pipe that are going to impact us literally at the same time.
I would say for one thing, it sure takes the wind out of the sails of those who thought that we were just going to get this extended
Right.
to
Right.
2049.
Right.
And as they discussed it last year in the legislature.
And I think there's going to be some other bills that are going to use any kind of a surplus for other areas across the state as well. So I think there'll be bills that'll say, well, instead of 10 million going to schools and the rest going to water quality, let's go 10 million for schools and the rest go to X, and just name X for any other group that might be advocating for some funding or some funding streams. So it's going to be interesting. It's a proposal right now, but I think as a school district, we need to advocate for what's best for us and our community to make sure that this is a dedicated funding source, and the intent of that funding source remains intact, which is, again, approved by all 99 counties now 14, 16 years ago, that this was going to be used solely for school infrastructure, and that's, I think, very important to keep that message.
Part of the problem with the fight that they've had with supplemental state aid, this becomes another bargaining chip that they
Right.
can use. It just
Right.
gets it all politically, another chip that he can have on his table for that purpose as well. So,
And the highest I've heard so far on the news is only 3% anyway. Let me see. I mean, 3% is better than what we've been doing, but
Governor Branstad came out with his proposal of 2.45% supplemental state aid, so that's something we'll have to
So they're
continue to watch and advocate for
pretty close on
appropriately.
that,
All right, thank you for your comments. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
yeah. So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.